Aren't they responsible for charging for the use as
Well,
opposed to
that's an
the school
interesting question.
district?
What's in the lease?
The interesting question, because we lease the building, it's the district's building
To use.
for $1 a year, period. And the fact that, that you want to talk about a political football, the fact that political subdivision, for lack of a better term, that's the Bridgewater Hebron Village District that owns the building, leases it to the district, chooses to schedule things there without even consulting us. There's good fodder for conversation. It's how does the board want to proceed? You know, they schedule rec events there. They schedule a basketball league there, which I've never received a facilities use request form.
What does the lease say? Do we know?
I do not know off the top of my head what the lease says. I'd be happy to review it when it comes to that specific building for you.
Okay. It sounds like policy KG needs to be reviewed by the policy committee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too.
That's
Because I
my
had
thought.
a question on the charging levels too. Like the high school, it's kitchen, or cafeteria and kitchen is 100, but the middle school, it's only cafeteria. And it's the same charge.
Oh, I bet that's an error. I bet it's supposed to be, yeah. And, yeah, I think that possibly we could
And
identify some groups, school-based,
in the auditorium is,
nonprofits, I don't know, maybe.
Without
maybe
getting
we wanna-
into
yeah.
the
So
level of
nice.
detail that the policy committee would on this subject, it appears to me that this is likely to be a motion to refer to the policy committee for
Right.
recent or upcoming review.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to item 9E, which is the school calendar. Is that correct? Yeah. Dr. McCormick.
Thank you. In your packet, the bright sunshine yellow, you will see a copy of the proposed school calendar. I would report to you that this is significantly different in some respects than what I had given as a draft to you for your input. I did meet with the NADA group. I met with the administration at Plymouth Regional High School because of the vocational center, and I met with our administrators. And the calendar you see before you reflects those meetings and those discussions. One of the driving forces behind the calendar that you have is, one, to keep us in sync with Plymouth, because it causes considerable problems when we're in session and they're not, or vice versa. We have pretty much reduced that or minimized that as much as possible. I would comment that I was very appreciative of their willingness when we met with them. There was a question about, they had an early release date late in October, and our contract with the collective bargaining agreement said that October 11th is a day, teacher in service day. And we couldn't schedule on the 28th because our contract specified the 11th. And although Plymouth had already adopted a calendar, meeting with them, they said that they would move to change theirs to the 11th so that we are in sync. One other thing I might point out to you is that it's a little bit different than what you may have seen in the past, and that is, if you look at the April 22nd, which is a non-instructional day but work day for the teachers, I was going to say I think it's the first time. You may have done it in your history, I'm not sure, but you will notice that K-5 parent conferences, because at the elementary level this is something that they do, and it's an integral part of how they assess and how they involve parents as well as students into the goal setting and conferencing practices. Whereas they do not do that in grades 6 through 12. that will be a professional learning day for those folks. Yeah.
So originally, it had said school would start on August 19th, is that right? Was that what the first calendar showed?
I'd have to go back and look, I don't know, but this is in sync with where Plymouth is at.
Right. I think, I'm speculating that they're starting early because Christmas break is long, and it will be long again next year because of where Christmas falls.
Mhm. Well, and also the 19th is the new teacher orientation day.
Right.
That's not for all people.
Right, I
Yeah.
know, no. I'm talking about the 22nd now. I think
Uh-huh.
the kids were starting earlier than that on the original. Is that right, Sue? Do you remember?
I'm not sure now. I
Because-
think that's quite early.
Yeah, I just don't want
So
us,
looking to see.
I don't want us starting before the last week in August, to be honest. Because we only have July and August for warm months and warm water in New Hampshire. And June, half the time it's rainy and cold. And I know people don't like to go late in June, but I don't like my kids going back mid-August.
No,
Just the
22nd.
original, it was still, it was the 22nd.
How many,
Nothing's
Phil,
changed.
how many students participate at Plymouth?
25,
Between 20 and 25.
20, 25 students.
And if they had a day when they were in school and we weren't, is that too much of a burden for them to get their own transportation there?
Well, I think the burden of getting there is one issue, but I think also the liability. I'm not sure, I mean, we really discourage at any situation, at any time, students driving students, and not everyone has a vehicle that they could get themselves there or parents to drive them. I mean, in addition to what kids lose if Plymouth is in session and we're not, but conversely, if Plymouth isn't and we are, what do we do with the kids? We don't have any, I mean,
They're on their schedule.
so we have a problem with that, trying to house, I mean, that's almost inviting
They could have guided
a
study.
behavior. Yeah, that's like I say, it's almost, in some situations, inviting a problem. I mean, to have kids sit there with nothing to do isn't necessarily a productive use of time.
Are they-
The other issue is, we're paying for those days.
Are they only there part of a day?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I hate to write a schedule for 20 kids or 25 kids and make the entire district held up for that number. What would it cost us to run a minibus from here if they could get here to school to deliver them there for those classes?
Well, what I'm saying is, we've minimized the need for that. I mean, for example, one of the big things is looking at the vacation weeks. That's a big issue. I would also say that we had a situation this year at the middle school where the student that we were bringing back into district, who attends Mount Prospect Academy, it's a very complicated issue, but it saved us considerable money and, again, effective programming for this student, because Mount Prospect Academy follows Plymouth schedule and we follow Plymouth schedule. Otherwise, there was the potential for costing a per diem of about $280 per day. But because we had synchronized as much as possible the calendars, I think there might be one day.
Sue wants to speak.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Sue, I'm sorry.
Well, I've always been against starting before Labor Day, and now it's pushed up another week. I'm not sure why they're pushing it up that early. I noticed that the end date in June is quite early, June 11th. We
It's
are a
really the
tourist
10th.
area.
The 11th includes the snow
It's the
day.
10th,
Yeah.
okay.
The 9th for
We-
students.
9th is for students, okay, so. Without snow days, right. No comment. But anyway, the 22nd of August, a lot of these kids get summer jobs and they work at places who cater to tourists. And I don't think those tourists are going home the 21st of August. So it makes it really difficult for those kids to get jobs because now their employers know that they're gonna lose them now a couple of weeks before Labor Day, well, week and a half before Labor Day. So, and
There's traffic
Ruby's
all around the
right.
lake.
And there's traffic everywhere, yeah. And we were, well, Labor Day weekend is one example of it. And that was pushed, the first day of school. Well, that's why we have the Friday off, because the Friday is the second highest traffic day in the year in this area, on that route that goes through town. So they pushed it back to Thursday. Well, the Thursday's pretty heavy too, because a lot of people come up on Thursdays now. But now an extra week ahead is just, to me, not acceptable.
What's your pleasure there, Sue?
Well, I would make a motion to not accept this calendar, I guess.
Or to modify it in a certain way?
If you
Did-
modified it to
Well,
be,
Sorry. Did Plymouth give a reason for starting early?
No. Not at the meeting that I attended. This is similar to what they have done in the past, and I believe where you've been
Yeah.
in the past. I understand and respect, having been superintendent in the lake in Meredith, that issue. But actually, we found that that was not the case, because many more Massachusetts schools now also start school earlier. Not all of them, but some of them. So in Inner Lakes, for example, right in Meredith, right there at the junction of 3 and 25, a marked difference between the week of the 19th and that week, significantly less traffic after that week, because they're already headed back. That's not all, and obviously Labor Day still occurs. But before you make a specific motion to change this, I would again say, and yeah, it may be 20 or 25 kids, but for those 20 or 25 kids, that curriculum and that program are very, very important. I mean, by their selection of the program, that's something that they need, they're learning again. And we all know the question is not how smart are you, but how are you smart? And some of these kids that are participating at the vocational site, that's important work. And if you don't think so, go out and try and hire a plumber.
I don't disagree with that. I don't think that 2 days would hurt us, to be 2 days different.
Plymouth thinks it does, because that's when they will go, the whole orientation on how you use the tools, how you do things. So our kids, if they go there, they're gonna start 2 days behind. I don't mean to be argumentative,
I know.
but I just want,
I know, yeah.
because I'm old and my memory is short, if I don't say it when it comes up, I
But
need to,
if
you
they
know.
move us to the 22nd, next year they'll move us earlier, and we'll have the same argument, and we'll say, because Plymouth runs the Voc Center, this is what we're going to do.
We need to discuss this further to resolve it if there's gonna be a change made to it.
I can't read your writing. I can't read your writing.
And I would have no problem with school starting 2 days earlier for the Voc kids, and then they have half-days at the end of the year. And honestly, running a little bus for them.
you might have to run the bus from their homes because there probably are kids that can take that couldn't get in.
Do you think that you can formulate a change to this that would be acceptable to Dr. McCormick's concern? I'm asking you two to talk.
Well, I don't know. Because it involves money if you're going to bring those students up there. It seems like that would be the way to go. Yeah, and there's no talking Plymouth into going back to, you know, that following week. There's no.
The thing I would say about that, my experience has been in both SAUs that I've worked, to bring the, Keene was the site, and then there were sending schools, Laconia was the site, and there were a number of sending schools. To bring those superintendents together in late October, early November, and talk it out. Obviously, I didn't have the opportunity to do that this year. I mean, one thing I could say, well, the superintendent next year, you know, a tickler file that I would leave would be to say, you know, approach Superintendent Halloran in October and have the discussion then. I mean, I didn't have this discussion until about 3 weeks to a month ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the circumstances
Yeah, there's a lot of
would be
things.
different next year.
Yeah. There's a lot of things this year that we're challenged to deal with, given the circumstance.
I mean, the other thing you'll notice that the one thing that Plymouth felt pretty strongly about is that they are going to go to school on Civil Rights Day. We are not. I mean, so that's one of the days that, where there is a discrepancy. For example, we also, that April 22nd day, that matches a workshop day in Plymouth. So, you know, again, where we tried to minimize the discrepancies for the benefit of the kids in the program.
Okay, well, when we get to action items, we're gonna need to deal with this. I was going to propose that be on the consent calendar, but we're not gonna do that now. We'll now move on to item 9F, which is a field trip that is in our packet. Any questions regarding the field trip?
My only question is, well, I guess I have two. The $250 per student covers the total cost of the field trip?
No.
No? 62 students, $250?
Well, some of it's coming out of the budget,
Okay.
transportation funds.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
60 times 250 is
15,500, so close. Second question then is, it says our scholarships available, yes. Do you know what the source is of them?
Dan, do you? I don't know the source of those.
Okay.
I can certainly check that if that.
In the back, if you look at the back of the request form, it talks about some students, 7 to 8, receiving scholarship help. That could be from student funds that have been raised through fundraising, things like that. May have been, I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, yep, okay.
It does say that. Anyone have further questions on that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to 9J, which is results of the February staff survey to increase parental involvement. We will turn to Ruby for,
Okay. I have a couple handouts. First, the results.
I'm not putting the field trip on the consent agenda because by default it would be the only item.
Oh,
So we'll take everything individually this evening.
okay. So, first page is just saying who answered and how many answered. And then the second page was about which event seemed to draw the most people. The third page was about volunteerism and how staff felt volunteers could best help them. The next page was how parents contact them, and the page after that was how they contact parents, which was interesting because because they were, you know, pretty parallel if you look at the bold numbers. The only yeah, I don't know that I really have anything big to say, except I think when it says other, please use comment box at end of survey to explain. And other, again, for the two-way communication, I think that is, you know, when people drop off their kids, they have conversations. So I think that accounts for most of the other. The next question about how parents can have a voice in their child's education, and they could choose more than one answer. Direct meetings was the number one answer, quite a bit more than the others. And then we get into the regular, the free response kind of questions.
One of the reasons that we did this survey had to do with the overall philosophy of trying to increase communications in general and to encourage parental involvement, which is why you heard me earlier advocating for the volunteer group that's attempting to be implemented in the district, and to increase parental involvement in general as best we can throughout the district. It's a fundamental tenet of Jamie Vollmer's approach to having the great conversation in the community about what would contribute to the support of our schools. So this effort was put forth as another little cog in that very big wheel to try to move that forward and adopt the approach of getting more people involved as best we can. How do you feel about putting the results of the survey out on the website for people to scrutinize?
If I can export the results, I don't know.
Is it just in a document format, or?
It's SurveyMonkey, so this is one of their reports. I think it's possible because I think I printed it as a PDF. I can look.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, PDF would certainly fly.
Yeah, if I've saved it. We might have just done that, printed it. This is the second handout that goes with that. Megan McGrath is one of the people trying to get the volunteer group going, and she was at our deliberative session and she was handing out brochures, but feedback from parents was they sort of didn't know what to do with it. I, rather than have her group start all over again and try to come up with stuff from scratch, I sent her this link to New Hampshire Partners in Education. And this is part of the Blue Ribbon School program that we have in the state, because one concern from people was that, you know, you'd have volunteers who didn't know what they were doing, and I just mean like, I'm here to help and I don't know what to do, and that there wouldn't necessarily be any kind of formal organization for them, and then how do we deal with safety concerns? So I arrowed a couple things on here, so as you can see that from this site, they can see the technical advisory created by both the New Hampshire Department of Safety and the Department of Education. So it goes through the background check process and all of that for the volunteers, as well as, you know, what's the role of the volunteer, et cetera, et cetera. And then underneath that, there's a volunteer coordinator's handbook, which I know Megan has opened and looked at. And it's so that they don't have to, you know, create a program. It talks about effective programs that already exist, and how they're organized, and how they can actually volunteer for improved academic performance and improved safety and engagement and stuff like that. Not just, you know, sort of somebody baking brownies. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, you know, so that they can make a more substantial contribution to the school. So I sent that to her.
Thank you for that support. Any questions on the survey or the reason behind it? Okay. We are now at an other business opportunity. Is there other business from anyone on the board?
Yes.
Hearing
Yes.
other business from Ms. Hill?
I don't want to be in charge of this one, but it's March, and according to our, I don't know what, our bylaws, our policy, whatever, March is the month for us to have the staff give feedback on board performance.
Yes, it is.
To do what? I'm sorry.
For the board to be evaluated by the staff. Yeah. And so I'm assuming that there's some format that's been used in the past.
Yes. Well, it hasn't been forgotten. It's behind, given, shall we say, the events of the day.
It doesn't give a date, it just says March.
Yeah, March.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, well, what I'd like to do is ask Phil to investigate a prior history on how to distribute the survey. There is a survey that goes out to the staff. And that was in our March tickler file for the board, and didn't slip through the cracks yet. One of the other things we did not do this evening was review the goals of the board, but you'll note that goal number 2 was to improve board faculty staff relations measured by a positive evaluation prior by saying to March of prior to March of 2013. I checked that off as having been met, but that one detail to actually evaluate the results is going to be as a result of a survey. The last thing that we did on there was item H, survey to increase parental involvement, and announced and released February 1st. So the action will be for Phil to check out the survey effort, and I think it's simply going to be an email that'll go out to the staff, as I recall.
Was there a format? Were there
Yeah, there
identified
is.
questions, and we have that somewhere?
There is, yeah.
Okay,
I think it was done on Survey Monkey last year. Yep.
okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to initiate it, I'm just going to get the
Find it.
information and pass on to,
To me,
fine,
you and I will get it resolved, and
okay.
try to get it done for the month of March.
Okay.
So is there other business?
One other thing for me, I just want to acknowledge this letter that Phil gave us a copy of for Mrs. Shedd
Yes.
being nominated for Teacher of the Year.
If I may, that,
Please,
I
Phil.
believe I was directed at the last meeting to, on behalf of the board, contact. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
No, thank you for doing that. That's the point. Never hurts to encourage positive things. We are now at public comment, limited to items on the agenda only. Is there anyone in the public that would care to comment on items on the agenda only? Yes, we have a public comment. Thank you very much. Appreciate your sticking around.
Just the parent survey. Where was that distributed? I haven't seen that.
It wasn't a parent survey, it was a staff survey.
A what?
It was a staff survey to challenge the staff to give us ideas on how to go about increasing parental involvement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we're now at the consent agenda, which is moved for the evening. There are no items on the consent agenda, which is item 11. So we will move on to action item number 12A, which is the Wellness Council presentation and request for action on policy. I refer you to the first bullet under current goals of the Apple sheet, which says the council would like to present an updated policy to the SAU Policy Committee for review in April 2013 in hopes that we can implement changes for the start of the school year 2013-14. So, for this action item, thank you again, Ann, for standing in for the Wellness Council. But I'd like to entertain a motion to request the Wellness Council to attend the next Policy Committee meeting to present a revision to the wellness policy. So moved. Mr. Reinhardt moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Sue.
Does this actually require a motion?
What
Or
I'm
just a
doing is
response?
just to get it on record, because they've requested for some time that the policy committee deal with this. They didn't know what to do, and when I attended the last meeting, I promised them that we would take action on it, and as a result, I think it wouldn't hurt to make the motion to invite them to attend, presenting the policy in the format they would like to see the committee adopt. That would take away much of the work of the policy committee, and then you can meet on it, have questions, deal with it, and decide whether to go or no go.
So I have a follow-up question then.
Sure. We're open for
The
discussion.
election's tomorrow, then we need an organization meeting. Can the policy committee meet between election and the new organization
Sure.
meeting? Okay,
Sure.
all right.
So you could
I'll let Ann know.
set that up.
No. I'll let whoever's name is on that then.
Yeah. We're,
I'll let Linda Shanley know when.
any other
Meeting.
discussion on the motion made by Paul and seconded by Sue? Okay, the motion reads to request the Wellness Council to attend the next Policy Committee meeting to present a revision to the wellness policy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And any abstentions? Okay. Motion passes 6-0. Katie, presentation from Deb Narrow, Executive Director. The action is that to be rescheduled. I intend to contact Deb and offer my apologies for the scheduling challenges we had this evening, as a footnote. Be rescheduled by chair. Number, let's see, we're now at,
Do we need to vote?
actually, no, the action was just to be rescheduled by chair. No action necessary. None or other as noted. We're now going to take item 9G out of sequence, which would be 12G regarding student residency and tuition. I'll entertain a motion from Ms. Hill.
Okay, hold on. Okay, I move that on the 2 requests received, we waive tuition for 3 months for the affected students. So that's for the remainder of this school year only.
Okay, the motion is made to waive tuition for remaining 3 months of this school year only.
Do we need to say 3 months? Just say for the remaining school
True.
year?
True, take away the 3 months.
Okay, for the remaining months of the 2012-13 school year. Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Only, you have to add the word only.
Only. Made by Ruby, seconded by Paul. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 0. No abstentions? And Bristol is absent. Okay, we took item 12G. That is passed. Thank you for your patience. We're now at item 12H that we took out of sequence, which was the alternative schedule update. Does anyone see any action necessary on this item?
No.
Hearing none, we'll check off the none box on 12H and move forward back to the request for keys to the Danbury School, which is 12C. Let's see. There's a motion from Mr. Rossner provided to us in your packet in yellow. There are 2 requests for exception to policy ECAAR, access to buildings. Number 1, key for Danbury Elementary School to be given to State Trooper Mike Feinauer. He will request the key with his troop. He will register the key with his troop, so they will know he has 1 key if there is ever an emergency. This will be done on a permanent basis, as noted. Secondly, to provide keys to the Danbury Elementary School on a temporary basis to parent-teacher organization officials. This would facilitate PTO meetings in the school buildings without an administrator being present for access or custodial overtime on an as-needed basis.
So moved.
Mr. Reinhardt makes the motion. The maker of the motion is Mr. Paul Reinhardt. Cross-reference
Second.
12C. This is seconded by Ruby. Is there further discussion?
I didn't see
Dawn.
on 2 the PTO on an as-needed basis.
I amended that.
Okay,
I did, the first one's permanent,
right.
and the second one is as needed. So the
Okay, so-
motion is made accordingly.
So you did amend it?
Yep.
Okay.
And PTO has been at 4 o'clock, most people can't come. And it's been at 4 o'clock because they don't have access to the building.
No, I know. I just,
Good reason to make the change.
yeah.
Okay.
Wanted
Any
to-
further discussion on the motion from Mr. Rossner? Note that these are exceptions to the policy. I have a question on that. Should we append the exceptions to the existing policy physically?
I
Why?
would say no.
Yeah. I
Because any
bet,
change to policy takes a couple of months to cycle, it's gotta go through policy committee and everything like that.
No, I'm just,
Yeah, but I'm saying if you append it to the policy. it
no, I
becomes
don't
part of the
mean
policy.
to become part of the policy. I mean, we're making an exception without appending it physically. If the motion passes tonight, then several boards from now, how are they gonna remember that, well, how come they have keys when it's clearly indicating in the policy that they shouldn't? The answer is because we voted it as an exception.
It's in the minutes. I mean,
Attach it,
Right.
yeah.
So I'm suggesting that it be attached to the policy itself as an exception.
Are they the only exception that we have?
That's my point.
Then you'd have to start adding.
As far as I know.
Okay. Do you keep track of where keys are somewhere in the, like, your records at the SAU?
We do not have a key log that I would suggest has rock solid integrity,
Okay,
but our keys are stamped, do not copy.
yeah.
So you, like, if you had a key, Danbury, you couldn't walk into a locksmith and make a copy of it, if any reputable locksmith anyway.
Yeah, yeah, and, so the Bristol Police Chief does not have a key to any of the Bristol schools?
The Bristol Police Department absolutely has keys to all the buildings they've been given it by board action.
Well, then, we do have keys out. So, that was my question. We do
Yeah.
have keys out to non-district staff already.
Yep.
Yeah, so if that's not appended, then why would this one be?
Just
I understand what
because
you're
we're
saying,
more-
they might end up
but
floating and we
We're
don't know
more
where they are.
current than the prior board didn't think to append it, that's why.
Well, you could get, that could, I mean, there are
We could-
exceptions to a lot of policies, individual exceptions, and that would make the policy book this big instead of this big, maybe.
So I think maybe what we need is an inventory as opposed to
Yes.
an append, because if we haven't
Yeah.
added to the policy in the past, even though it's not us, then what are we gonna do, go back and look?
No, the point is, I'm just thinking ahead, that just because it may have been done wrong in the past, doesn't mean that those of us that see that this detail could be missed in the future, couldn't correct it, suggesting that a digital copy of an appendage to this policy be added to the policy. That's all.
We could change the policy such that the SAU office
So you're not
is
really
required to maintain a record of the keys.
Yeah, but that's a way to do it, which would require another policy.
No,
So you're
require a
not-
change to the
Right.
policy.
You're not
Which
changing
policy are
the-
you talking about? This one?
Yeah, the one that's referenced.
ECAAR.
Yeah.
Or we could just instruct the facilities manager to create an inventory.
Yeah,
Like, we, the board can do that without a policy.
Okay.
I would suggest you can't, you can direct the superintendent to do it, but
That's true.
I would also tell you that to create an accurate inventory, you need an accurate starting point. And if you don't have that, now you're talking about a major investment in rekeying all the buildings.
Oh, boy.
This is, my suggestion is, in my opinion, just prudent management from here on.
But
My
if it's
personal
not-
feeling.
If it's not all encompassing,
But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do something that's corrective in nature just because it hasn't been done or we can't start from scratch.
other than really correcting it.
So basically, all you want to do is attach an exception to the policy?
Yeah,
Just saying we made an exception.
this exception,
Yeah, so what's the big deal? Do it.
that's my feeling.
Okay.
So,
But is that a motion now?
no, it's just a suggestion that we go ahead and do it.
Okay.
And that if this motion were to pass, then we should append this to the digital copy, which should be the final copy that's out on the website.
This motion did pass. We already voted on it.
No, we haven't.
No.
We're
We didn't?
discussing it.
You made the
600?
motion.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that was the other one.
No, you,
Okay.
Paul made the motion
All right,
and you
okay.
seconded it. And this is discussion,
All right.
okay? So, is there further discussion on the motions as read? Permanently and as needed? Hearing none? All those in favor for Dan's motion in yellow, 12C, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay. Any abstentions?
Yeah, no, I think I just put.
Okay, we are now at item 12D. The chair would entertain a motion to move this, to refer this to the policy committee for current review as soon as possible to do so. This is with respect to Dan's motion
So moved.
to proceed with policy KG. It has been moved by Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Sue. Any further discussion?
I would just add that I think the policy committee needs a copy of the lease with Bridgewater Hebron.
Yes,
Yep.
Yeah.
No problem.
good point. AR, Dan, lease copy to policy committee. Bridgewater Hebron Village School. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes 6-0-0, Crystal excused. Okay, we're now at item 12E. This is action to be taken on the school calendar for the calendar year 2013-14. What is your pleasure?
I would make a motion, we accept the calendar as presented by Dr. McCormick.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to present the calendar as presented by Dr. McCormick. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Seconded by Yuri. Discussion.
Not on this motion.
Okay. No discussion on the calendar as presented by Dr. McCormick.
No discussion on the motion.
The motion is to accept the calendar as presented by Dr. McCormick. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, I would call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, that's 4 in favor, 2 no. That being Danbury and Alexandria in the minority. Thank you. Item 12F, field trip. Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the field trip as presented.
Okay, there's a motion before the floor to approve the field trip as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dawn. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Any abstentions? Okay. We covered 12G already. There's no action on 12H. And the results of the parental survey.
Staff survey. Yeah.
See, Heather, you had me, you switched me, my thinking. That's real influence. The results of the February staff survey increasing parental involvement. The chair would entertain a motion to put the end results out onto SAU4.org.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
seconded by Ruby. Okay, further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Please
Aye.
signify by saying aye, aye, and no for opposed? None? 6 in favor, the motion passes. Okay. Is there, let's see, we had other business. No motion necessary, other than the feedback that we need to catch up on that. I have it as an action required. And thank Phil for putting the acknowledgement letter together for Ms. Shedd. It brings us to the manifest, item 13.
Yes. Yes.
And I hear Sue commenting on manifests in the background.
I am. I move to approve the manifest for December 2012 and January 2013. And thank you, Paul, and you
You
got a
didn't
month
do
ahead of
February?
me. You got a month ahead of me. I've been
That's
busy.
Moved
But
by
thank you.
Sue and seconded by Paul to approve the manifest for December 2012 and January 2013. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Any abstentions? Under announcements, tomorrow's voting day. If everyone would please get out and vote, we would be much appreciative. I'd like to thank Yuri for his service to the school board for the past 10 months. And in the event that, for whatever reason, the voters choose not to return him to us tomorrow, I again want to express my appreciation for you putting in all this time this year. It's been a very eventful year. So, wishing all candidates good luck. We await the results. I'd also like to put in a commercial to vote in favor of Article 2 tomorrow, which is the NADA agreement, the collective bargaining agreement that benefits both sides. And we hope that that will pass. We talked about school events in the attached sheet that's listed in the minutes. And the date of the next regularly scheduled school board meeting is slated for April 8th. There may be a planning and dialogue meeting for the end of March, pending the results of a negotiation with our superintendent-elect. There may be other topics that will come up. At this point in time, we have nothing scheduled. There will be, at the present time, an anticipated planning and dialogue session on April 29th, perhaps in addition to the 22nd. We will see. And that will be to receive and accept the report of the K-8 Select Committee. Anyone else have any announcements?
Mr. Migliori?
Yes, Dr. McCormick.
I'm very pleased to announce that Peter Coffrin forwarded me some information regarding the Plymouth State field hockey team, and specifically that 8 members of the Plymouth State University field hockey team have been recognized with national academic honors from the National Field Hockey Coaches Association. Specifically, Allison Dore, who is a freshman at Plymouth State from Bristol, from the Newfound School District, was named to the Division III National Academic Squad, which recognizes student athletes who have achieved a minimum cumulative GPA of 3.30 through the first semester. I think this is significantly noteworthy because, one, making that transition as a freshman is very difficult, and two, the tremendous time commitment that student athletes have to put forth to participate and participate successfully really speaks to, I think, the commitment, the skills of this young lady, and it's a tremendous reflection on the Newfound School District.
Thank you for mentioning that. Good news is always welcome. Could you refresh my memory as to the title she was recognized as?
Want me to just hand this to you, and then it'd be probably easier?
Sure. Sure, I'll keep it attached. Thank you. We're now at item 17. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Second.
Seconded by Ruby. All those in favor say aye. The ayes have it. The motion is passed.
Aye.
We're all over the rubies for dinner.
Yeah.
Yes,